All right, good morning and welcome to another great episode of It's All Interventional. Today we're going to talk with Nicole Clausen about a topic that's really important to those interventional teams and departments, but probably not widely understood. Today's topic is about the department called Revenue Integrity and how it relates to the interventional teams. I'm going to share some background of Nicole so that you know that we have the privilege to talk to someone who really knows the ins and outs of this topic. Now, Nicole's been in the healthcare business for over 25 years. She started her career in a large multi-specialty physician group practice and expanded to the hospital setting for 10 years before coming to her current role last year. All of Nicole's healthcare experience has been in finance, revenue cycle, and revenue cycle management. While fully responsible for revenue cycle within the acute care hospital system, she later advanced to manage and direct a revenue cycle for 5 hospitals under the umbrella of a large hospital system covering New York and Pennsylvania. Now, these hospitals did have interventional departments within the facilities, but she was on the team when one of these facilities decided to start a cardiac cath lab, which ultimately moved to a fully functional interventional unit with a wide variety of IR, including vascular. Nicole led the revenue aspect on all the startups and then continued its success. Today, Nicole is the Vice President of Revenue Cycle and Finance for Pennsylvania Mountain Healthcare Alliance. Nicole, that was a mouthful, and I am so glad that you could join us today. As you know, this channel is called It's All Interventional, everything that has to do with the interventional teams. Now, we really get caught up in patient care, which honestly, that is the most important aspect of our departments. But there is a business aspect that really needs attention as well. So 20 some years ago in my history, I remember a department called Revenue Integrity showing up. Now, maybe before that, maybe after, I don't really know, but I really didn't know a whole lot about that. So can you tell us what actually is revenue integrity?
Well, revenue integrity, you mentioned 20 years, and 20 years you heard about it, but it's gotten more attention over the last, I'd say, 5 to 7 years. But overall, it's a department within revenue cycle that provides support to those ancillary revenue producing departments to ensure accurate and concise charge capture. Um, the whole charge master updates, maintenance, very important within revenue integrity, as well as appropriate charging, documentation, making sure that the documentation matches the charges, matching what was done to the patient, as well as the pre-service, but the authorization piece. Authorizations are ever cumbersome for those that have to obtain them. And there's no master list out there to say what needs an authorization and what doesn't. So especially within IR, things can change rather quickly during a case, and making sure that the appropriate authorization is obtained prior to the service, as well as if anything changes immediately following.
Okay, all right, super, that's awesome. Can you share for me a little bit of the history of revenue integrity?
Sure. So, as we talk about revenue integrity, it's a group generally within revenue cycle. It will assist with reports, tracking, root cause analysis, but all of that is in conjunction with the ancillary department, recommending workflows, process changes, and really the history and moving forward is to reduce errors. That would be charging errors, billing errors, decrease in revenue leakage, increase cash collections, and decrease in denials. And you had mentioned the 20 years. I've worked in small organizations as well as very large urban facilities, and it's gotten more traction now. So it's more important. It's not just going in. A lot of times the IR departments, they aren't, or any department really in the hospital, they aren't as focused on the back end, is what they would call it, or paid for the service they provide. So I think it was rather loose 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Within the last 10 years, it's the accountability. It's understanding what needs to be done from a department level and holding them accountable for the revenue in their departments with the support of the revenue integrity team.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, how exactly does revenue integrity directly interact with the interventional radiology or cardiac cath labs?
So, revenue integrity deals a lot with the interventional CAT and cath labs.
Mhm.
They're one of the largest departments that revenue integrity would focus on,
Mhm.
and that's similar to the OR, right? The procedures are complex, they are expensive to perform, and they take a lot of resources. So yes, revenue integrity interacts with IR in particular um, because of those high dollar complex cases to ensure going back to the authorization process, making sure that that is compliant, um, reducing any non-compliance to increase that revenue. They're really hand in hand.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Nicole. So, do you directly interact with anybody from the interventional departments?
I do myself, yes. In my role, or even in my past role when I was directly in the facility, I would deal with the director, the manager, whatever the case might be in that department, um, routinely. Sometimes it was on a case by case basis because the cases can be $30,000 or $80,000. So it it needed quick attention. Not only that, and in real time. So when we talk about revenue integrity, revenue integrity is looking back at denials, but also catching things as they occur. So that's what I mean when I refer to that. But not only myself um, dealing with IR departments, but also the revenue cycle team. Registration, they may be responsible for getting the off. It might be on the department side, but they would definitely validate it or verify it. So they deal with IR. There's also coding. Coding is huge. They have to code the procedure and match the documentation up to the charges. They would deal with interventional departments. Documentation. So the HIM, health information clerical side, would make for sure that the documentation is complete. Billing, if something went wrong on the billing side, there's billing edits, they would reach out directly to the interventional team as well as the revenue integrity department itself on the back end.
Gotcha.
Lots of interaction.
Yeah, it sounds like it. All right. Now, you mentioned that revenue integrity might be looking back to correct some things in history, but you said also something about catching it as it was happening. How does that happen that you catch it as it's happening?
Well, it can be pre-service. So pre-service, making sure the insurance aspect is taken care of, whether that's collecting out-of-pocket liability from the patient upon arrival or pre-service, getting the authorization piece. All of the collection of patient liability is handled on the revenue cycle side, most likely, but that authorization piece can be mixed between the IR department. Um, and also intraoperatively. So even when they're in a case, they're complex. It might change gears and they might need to go a different direction in the service that they're providing. So those involved in that case need to be um, on that, whether it's either noting that something changed, capturing what's been being done to the patient in, say, a tech documentation versus the physician, and making sure all of that match together.
Gotcha. Okay, super. Thank you. All right. So, why is from someone from an interventional department, being IR or cath lab, be interested in revenue integrity?
Well, there should be great interest in revenue integrity. As with any product or service, whether it's in healthcare or not, you need to get paid for what you are providing or for the goods that you are delivering, so that this is no different. Um, Accountability. I think interventional radiology departments need to be interested in revenue integrity and be accountable and to learn about revenue integrity, because it's how they are successful in their department throughout the facility. And it is a very sought after department to have in a facility. Um, it it creates great benefits for the patients, and so I would say overall, that interest level, possibly through education, there might need to be a lot of education as to why they need to be interested in revenue integrity, but to make for sure the viability of their departments and the success of their departments continue.
Absolutely. Okay. Is your role in revenue integrity unique to your position or your peers, or is there something different across the board? Is there variety in how your role in revenue integrity is designed?
I would say my role currently is maybe a little different, but as I've been in the facilities previously for 10 years, I don't think there should be any difference. And more recently, there has been that focus. There's an evolution of the need to reduce the risk of noncompliance and increase revenue. And that's needs to be done ethically. And so in general, I think my role and those of my peers would be similar to that statement. Making other departments understand why they need to be involved in revenue integrity, and attending the root cause analysis meetings. That would be at the department level, and really diving in per case on any denials so that you can accelerate cash, reduce bad debt, and just avoid revenue leakage at all costs with these procedures being done.
Gotcha. So if I were to go from one facility to another, I should pretty well expect the same kind of interactions no matter where I go, because we all have the same goals of that from revenue integrity side.
Exactly. And I've seen that. I work with multiple hospitals, and there is that similarity in these revenue integrity departments now. That's really good to see. I mean, it is good to see that really my peers and those in the similar situation or in an acute facility that has interventional services, they are engaging.
Gotcha. Okay, super. What are some of the questions you might get from an IR or a cath lab?
Well, someone that doesn't understand revenue integrity or might be even new to the IR department, and this is a true example. Um, and I will say that they want to do the right thing. They want to get paid for the services they're providing to the patients. But I do think gears have shifted in that education to make for sure that they understand it's their responsibility as well to make for sure it's not just a back end function. You sometimes hear, "Oh, that's billing's problem," billing, but it really needs to be a team approach. So some questions I've gotten. Why do I need to care about this? I'm providing a service to the patient, or why do I need to do this? Why do I need to get back to you on this? Or the revenue cycle team. Um, isn't this billing's problem? Or my favorite one, because I am a stickler on doing daily checks and balances to match charges to documentation to patient services. How do I do checks and balances? So even something of making sure that the patient is charged or discharged out correctly. Um, those are some of the questions that are most common.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, I thought of another question while we were talking here. I've heard a lot from folks in departments, almost a fear a little bit of what if they charge the wrong thing? You're doing your checks and balances. Am I going to go to jail if I charge the wrong thing? If I put the wrong code on there? Can you respond to that one?
That's a great question. Great question, Scott. Um, it's going to be okay. So there's processes and our own checks and balances, on the revenue cycle side, where that shouldn't happen. You've got charge master, so making sure that the charges are built in the system to reflect the services provided, and that's also at the department level, checking or ordering the right procedure that's going to be done. There's documentation as a double check that has to be matched with the charge. And that goes into the coding piece. So there's another set of eyes on charges, on the documentation, on the service that was provided to make for sure it all matches up. And then there's almost another double check on the revenue cycle side, which is billing edits. So there's eyes looking at it to make for sure that the documentation matches the charges. And if something's off, there should be a whole query process on how to reach back out to the department, which is another real time, I guess, catching of being able to reduce errors. But then on the billing side, there's also another check before the claim would go out the door, just to make sure everything's accurate.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. I'm sure someone heard that and sighed a little bit easier now. What are some of the things that revenue integrity can do to assist the IRs and cath labs to be more efficient and more successful in their daily process?
I would say revenue integrity can help develop workflows. We're not clinical people, but we can help identify a process and make for sure working with, I keep saying team, it's always a team approach, making sure that we're working with the clinical side of the department to make sure that we capture their workflow as well, whether they have a system or they do things manually. Guides in reimbursement. Talked a little bit about the authorization. There's no master list of each payer and what needs authorized. So putting that together, making sure it's verified, kept up to date, documentation training, and that could be on the tech side, that could be on the procedural nurse, and that could be on the physician side, which is most common. And then just helping develop processes for efficiency. And having monthly meetings. I started having monthly revenue integrity meetings in probably 2015, where I invited all of the directors of revenue producing departments, and they got to see their denials for the past month and expected to go through them with a root cause and come to this, how it happened, why it happened, and what they put in place so it wouldn't happen again. So all of those things, and we're always there for support and guidance for the clinical revenue producing departments like I are.
Fantastic. That's a great plan. As I talk with more and more folks, I'm hearing these best practices, and it seems the improvement is coming when people actually get together from different departments and communicate for improvement instead of everybody just sitting on their own island, trying to manage from where they're at.
Yes, and just like today, we have all different avenues where we can do this. Many hospitals now have video conferencing. So if they can't take their time out, whether it's to travel across town to get to where the meeting is, or even go 4 flights up, we have this capabilities such as the video conferencing. That it can be in person or video, and I've done both, and they've been very successful.
Very, very good. Very good. All right. So if you could give the folks in the IR departments and Catholic and say, you know what, here's a request I might have of you to help make both our departments and the facility more successful and efficient, what would your request to those teams be?
I would say my number one request is always make for sure you have a checks and balances process, policy, and make for sure it's followed. There's so many times I've seen where, and people get busy. People are definitely busy, but if you let that go and you say, I'll do it on Fridays, you kind of get backlogged. And some have even said, I do it once a month. that's even scarier. Having daily checks and balances or the next morning really helps keep everything in tune. And those questions can be asked if something comes up while it's fresh in your mind, not weeks
Right.
later.
Fantastic. Nicole, this information you've shared with us today is really, really insightful. Um, I can imagine if I were in the facility again and had heard this when I was early in my career, things may have got a lot more smooth in our processes. But hopefully someone has been able to take your wisdom and can put that in action if it's not at their facility. I I see that we could take this discussion also and just drill down to quite a few more topics, even as far as saying, okay, let's do a video on processes, actions we're going to do. What is a check and balance? How does that work? How can we implement that into our facility? So maybe we can get together sometime and just talk about that and put things together for our folks that are viewing today. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Um, your history and your wisdom proves success and why you are where you are. So again, I thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Scott. It was definitely my pleasure.
So thank you guys for joining today. It's all interventional. Great episode, as you heard. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I will try to get through as many as I can. If you have some history with revenue integrity and have some ideas for a discussion, please let me know. I'd be glad to look at that. Also, do like and subscribe. You'd be surprised again how much that helps the channel. And we look forward to seeing you again on another great episode of It's All Interventional.